Also, there's a risk that it could maybe take our jobs away. I've got 30 children and I've got 5 children that are particularly difficult. Don't be scared to embrace it. I was obviously looking at the watch, sort of confused, and he just took a picture of me. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Let's Talk uSports podcast. This is a podcast where sports coaches and PE teachers come together to talk about sports education. And it's quite a relaxed sort of podcast. So if you do enjoy it, please do like, comment, subscribe, follow if you're listening on Spotify, and let's get into it. So today's topic is about technology, and I think there's a huge amount of technology that we can be using as sports educators, which could potentially benefit us, but also there's a risk that it could maybe take our jobs away. I don't know if it's that far, but we're going to be talking about everything technology in today's episode. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is AI. Is artificial intelligence a good thing, a bad thing for our sector? Well, let's talk about AI. So if you don't know already, if you've been living under a rock for the last year or so, AI or artificial intelligence is a whole new era that we're moving into in terms of technology. It's almost where the system can create content for you without the human input. There's probably much better explanations of it, but you are able now to go onto an AI generator and say, create me a lesson plan for a year 2 gymnastics lesson focusing on flight, and it will automatically you'll see it typing it out and it will just come up with a whole lesson plan on flight. And there's no one on the other end of that. It's just the computer is generating that for you. So it's quite an interesting concept, and it's something that I haven't seen being massively used within the sector yet, but I do think in the next 5-10 years there will be a bigger push towards AI within this sector, and overall how we deliver lessons, how we actually structure our lessons, and where we're getting our content from. And one of those places that you tend to get content from is YouTube. You might go on Google and you'll find content created by a expert, most likely, who would have put together a whole lesson plan on flight, for example, for a year 2, and you'll have access to that created by someone who probably knows what they're talking about. Now, with all this different content out there, AI will be able to almost pick the best bits of all of these different contents and put it into one that it displays to you. So what you might be getting when you're using artificial intelligence is a whole mixture of different people's content to create what it thinks will be the best solution for you in that time. So it is quite a concerning, quite a worrying thing, but at the same time, it's going to happen, and I do think that we as sports educators need to be aware of the changes that are likely to come about. But it's not just going to be lesson plans generated by AI. There is a huge amount of different things that AI can do, and I've got on here just a few other situations that AI might be able to support with. Now, when you are using ChatGPT or Gemini, which is the one Google owns, I use Gemini. And when I'm going to Gemini, if I've had a session or I know I've got a session which is difficult, I could be asking Gemini for advice on behavior management. I could prompt it with as much information. I could say, right, I'm teaching a year 2 gymnastics lesson with flight. I've got 30 children and I've got 5 children that are particularly difficult. And I'm giving it all this information, almost like I'm having a discussion with the computer. I've got 5 children that are particularly difficult. One of them struggles to get involved in the session. They're very nervous, and 4 of them have ADHD, and they struggle to sit down and listen to the instructions, which makes it an unsafe environment. What do you recommend? And then Gemini will be able to reply and say, well, these behavior management strategies might be beneficial for you. And if you don't like the response, you can just change it. So yes, it's great for lesson plans, but also you could be using it for helping with these certain situations. It might even help you with assessments. For example, if you're doing like a assessment on flight and you're not sure and the school hasn't given you any way to actually assess flight, well, you could ask Gemini to say, I need to assess 30 children in year 2 flight. How would you recommend I do it? And it will just be able to create content. And I think what really good people will do when they're working with AI is they'll be able to identify that solution that AI has given them isn't the be all and end all answer, but it might give them a bit of structure. It might give them give them some idea of what it might look like, and then they'll be able to use their professional judgment to then adapt what it said, so you can actually work on something that works for your class. And like I say, there's loads of different situations that AI would be able to help. And like I say, hopefully you have a mentor or somebody like that you can ask, but Gemini will be able to filter lots of different content from across the web and be able to provide you reasonably good information. It's not going to be perfect, but it is interesting to see, like, what is that going to turn into over the next 5 or 10 years. For example, if I film a video on 5 throwing and catching PE lessons and I put it on YouTube, well, obviously that takes me 20-30 minutes to film it. I've got to edit it. We put it up on YouTube. It takes time. Whereas it probably won't be long until you can create almost like an imaginary person talking through 5 different throwing and catching lessons, because what it can do is it will, if you give it a picture of someone, it actually has the ability to make that person move and talk as if they're a real person. And obviously they already have the content because they can give it to you in written form. They just put that into the video and it genuinely looks like a real person creating content, talking you through how to deliver throwing and catching PE lessons, but it's actually got no human input, and it could be done in like a minute, and like hundreds and hundreds of videos could be pumped out using all this, using content from AI, using video from AI. And it's just something to be aware of, that everything you see at the moment on YouTube around the sports coaching and PE teaching sector, from what I see, is real people actually talking about it. Like this podcast, if you're watching now, is me talking, but it would not be impossible for this to actually be AI. And if I give it a picture of me and it could be talking, and then you have to filter through, right, how do we do that? How do we know, is this AI content or is this a real experienced person actually telling me this? And I don't exactly know the solution to that. I think at the moment it's quite easy to detect AI. So if I'm like, even in my business, if somebody sends me a CV, I can normally tell if it's been written by AI. And if I'm not 100% sure, you can copy and paste it and put it into an AI checker, and it will tell you 95% chance this was created using AI, for example. But I don't know how that evolves over the next 5-10 years. Is there going to be a lot more content within our sector that is actually fake / AI to some extent? Now, that sort of leads us into some of the negatives as well, which is obviously understand what is real and what is fake. If you're constantly having to filter through different bits of content to work out whether it's actually a real person, real educated, experienced person, or is it just a jumble of different content, it's not very helpful. But also, like I said, what does this look like in 20 years' time? Because if you can do that now, are our jobs going to be at risk? I don't think so, because I think you're always going to need a leader leading the class, and you're going to need real children actually to work with. But it wouldn't surprise me if there is, to some level, you would be able to at least, like, I don't actually know the right way to say it, almost, because could you have a robot PE teacher at the front of the class who has cameras on and can track her? It's not realistic right now, but if that becomes a very cheap option and very realistic where you can almost deliver a PE lesson fully from AI, I think it's something that somebody will do, but I don't think it's going to go mass, because I just don't see how that works on a mass scale. But I do think there's a technology there to have a robot or whatever that might be standing at the front of the class with 30 children, and it would be able to talk and lead through and probably do demonstrations within the next 20 to 50 years. That is probably something that the technology is going to be able to do. I don't know what that means for our sector as such, but it's just interesting to think about, like, where is this sector going, and how do we use technology for good and not for bad. And then I think The final point I'd make on AI is that don't be scared to embrace it, because yes, there's like it isn't a real person telling you it, but it is very smart in the way it works it out. And like I say, you can be very nervous about doing an assessment for a certain sport, and you could ask it, and within 10 seconds you would have a response which gives you some sort of level of structure. And it's not really how PE assessment should be done. Obviously, it should be done a whole school-wide curriculum, but it's just those different situations that you might find yourself in as a sports educator that AI actually might be able to help you out with. So I do think in today's day and age, it's just unacceptable now for, and to be fair, it's always been unacceptable to turn up to a session and not plan what you're doing. But it's just so easy to do it now. And yeah, I think with the changes there, just give it a try and embrace it to some extent, because I think it's important that you understand it as well. But yeah, that's sort of AI and technology. I think you could really talk about AI for a whole episode, but just conscious not everyone's overly fascinated with AI, so it's something to move on from, which means I'm going to move over to apps now. And as a PE teacher, as a sports coach, understanding the different apps that are available out there. And I haven't got like specific apps that I'm going to be talking through, but I've got like genres of apps. Now, the first app genre that I'm going to talk about is active gaming apps. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's apps that sort of gamify movement. So outside of school, we could be encouraging children to be active, and we've always said, go and play a sport on the weekend or whatever. But if you want to move forwards a little bit with the times, then we understand that most children, probably year 5 and 6, do have a phone. And so what apps might you be recommending? Well, it might be a little app similar to Pokemon Go. You might have played Pokemon Go before, where you can travel the world and you got to try and find different Pokemon. But what did that do, especially when it was like almost like everyone was playing Pokemon Go, was that loads of people were out walking. They were walking down the river trying to find the next Pikachu or wherever it was. And it's not just Pokemon Go. There's loads of different active gaming apps. So it might be worth you just looking on the App Store to try and find any apps that you think would actually fit well with your children. It's something to look at. It wouldn't surprise me if there's something you would be able to do where you could then bring that in the school. But most schools aren't going to bring phones into a school, are they? But it's something to think about. Is realistically, there's probably an app out there that would allow you to almost do orienteering, but using phones, and you would have to get to a certain GPS place within the school, get to the trim track, and you get 2 points or whatever it is. But is that realistic for it to be coming in now? I don't think so, but there might be some really forward-thinking schools that actively look at bringing technology into to schools. Whether that's the right thing to do, personally, I don't think it is, because I just think in concept it's great, but as soon as you give children a phone, there's so many different things they could actually be doing on that phone whilst in that PE lesson. So I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do, but it's just something interesting to think about. Physiology apps as well. There's lots of apps out there. You could basically go onto an app and say, right, I'm playing netball, and then you say, oh, I'm doing a chest pass in netball. You'd select it, and it would show you what all your different muscles are doing whilst you're making that move. And so for a child, they might find that quite interesting. Oh, look, actually my calf is being used quite a lot when I'm doing a chest pass. I wasn't thinking about my leg or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just again, understanding there's apps out there that will give you so much detail on what your body is doing within certain movements within different sports. So again, just finding them. Analysis apps as well, probably difficult with 30 children, but you could potentially film a child doing a long jump and then actually analyze it and show them where they're going wrong. Look, you're actually taking off on 2 feet, but you need to be doing it on 1 foot. Look, here's you performing it. I'm going to put it next to a professional long jump athlete, and you can see the difference of you when you're jumping, or whatever it is. Obviously, we're constantly analysing within our lessons, but sometimes technology might be able to help you. And also, there will be apps out there where you can probably upload a video of you doing a long jump, and it will just either you could send that off to a jump specialist, and they'll be able to give you feedback. And obviously that's a use of technology. But the way AI is going, you could upload it to an app. AI would analyze your performance, and then it would be able to give you tips on how you could improve your distance in a long jump. It's just like, what I want to do in this podcast is just make you think, wow, I didn't know there was things out there that do it. And you might go out and explore and try and find some of these apps which might help you in different situations. Even like training apps, you have apps where you'll be able to make your training regime for if you've got a big competition coming up, if they're going to do the local park run and they've set a target time for this, you could probably put in there, right, I plan to, in 3 months' time, drop my 2K race time by 30 seconds, and it will give you a whole training idea on and plan on how you'll be able to reduce your time. As well as that, thinking about Fitbits and like all the smart watches. Sometimes you see kids coming with smart watches and it might just be tracking their steps, but like, is that something you want to embrace? Because you probably want to avoid the watches which allow them to make calls and texts, and some watches even got cameras on them. I had a child come up to me in a session saying, "Oh, look at my watch," and it literally just looked like a Fitbit, and he pressed something, and I was obviously looking at the watch, sort of confused, and he just took a picture of me. And I, like, from a safeguarding point of view as well, that's something to watch out for. But again, trying to focus on the positives of that. If it's just a watch that's tracking their steps, could you embrace that? Right, in today's lesson, let's record how many steps you've done now. At the end of the lesson, we'll record it, and we'll be able to see how active you've been in your lesson. Just different things to think about. And then lesson planning apps. I think a lot of schools already embrace different apps, and I spoke about them in the last week's episode or the week before, where you can pay a yearly subscription and have access to a long-term curriculum map full of lesson plans from foundation through to year 6. So just be aware that those sort of things are out there as well. But yeah, there's so many different apps for you to consider and just be aware of. Doesn't mean you have to be using all of them, but there might be one or two you go, actually, that would be really helpful for me, or actually, I know one child who'd really benefit from me encouraging them to use this app, or whatever it is. So just having a think about that. And then I'm going to move on to my third topic, which is around video. And personally, for me, I don't think video is used enough within PE lessons. That we know that there's different types of learners. So some people learn through listening, they're auditory learners. Some will learn through watching, and they'll be visual learners. And then some will learn through doing, and they'll be kinesthetic learners. And you can sort of combine, I think most people, there is an element of all three that needs to take part, because you could watch a triple jump 50 times. Doesn't necessarily mean on the first try you're going to know it. Your body's still going to have to learn that process and learn how to do it. But when you are teaching a brand new sport, say triple jump is a perfect example where a lot of children just struggle to understand what it's meant to be. So you can do the auditory of hop, skip, jump. You can give them a practice and let them learn by doing it and asking them to do it at half the speed and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes if the educator can't do a triple jump themselves, which they by no means need to be able to as such, but if they can't, then I would be thinking about, right, is there a video tool that I could use as somebody, the top triple jumper in the world right now, and we watch that before we go out to do our triple jump PE lesson. And that could be the same for a cartwheel in gymnastics, or like learning the different shapes in gymnastics, or different dance routines, or whatever it is, and using video to help children understand, right, what am I actually trying to learn by the end of this lesson. It sort of comes back to that, can't see it, can't be it. And that's where, if you're a young 24-year-old athletics person and you're doing your triple jump, you're showing them, right, this is how you do it, it's a triple jump, then that's one thing. But if you can find a video online of a 7-year-old doing a triple jump really well, it's that can't see it, can't be it. Well, if you show a 7-year-old doing it, then hopefully it gives the kids a bit more like that, it gives them a bit more of a chance to think, you know what, I can do that. So yeah, I definitely think about introducing video more into your lessons. Like I say, both with showing them younger age groups, showing different like might be people with disabilities, might be of different ethnicities, different genders, and I think that's an important part of like almost including like your cultural element into your PE lessons as well. So yeah, that's something to consider definitely. And then just a little bonus one at the end here for technology is thinking about music. Recently on YouTube, we've had so many downloads on our PE background music video that I uploaded about a year ago, and that is just people clearly are delivering a lesson, maybe in a hall, delivering a throwing and catching lesson or whatever it is, and they just in the background just add some music, and sometimes that just adds a real nice energy to your session. I love to add music into my own sessions, so it's just one of those things that if you're really well planned, you can actually think about, right, what type of music do I want in the background, and you can just open up YouTube and put on some background music, or or whatever that is, and it just tries to add energy and focus into your lesson, and I think some kids will really enjoy that within your lesson. So that is me done on our technology podcast today. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Just thinking about opening your mind up to different things within the sector that you might not have thought about. Now, as you might know already, I run a sports coaching company. We're working with over 100 schools and nurseries across the UK. And actually on a Sunday at 6 a.m, I release weekly videos showing you the behind the scenes look of what it's like running a sports coaching business. So that comes out Sunday, 6 a.m. And the podcast is out every Thursday, 3 p.m. This is the 4th podcast we've released. So if you haven't listened to the other ones, please do go to check them out. They're on Spotify, Audible, and YouTube, and hopefully on Apple Music very soon as well. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, share, and see you in the next one.